Um, Picture this for a second, if you would. You are standing in a wide open field, right? The morning air is super crisp, and the sky is just like stretching out infinitely above you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm picturing it. Sounds peaceful.
It is, until you look at your arm. Because resting on your forearm on this really thick, heavy leather glove is a falcon.
Oh, wow.
Okay? And you could feel the sheer physical power of this animal. I mean, you could see the intricate patterns on its feathers, those razor-sharp talons just gripping the leather. And for a moment, it is completely calm.
Right.
But then it launches, like you watch it ascend, wings fully spread, diving and weaving into the open air, just getting smaller and smaller against the clouds.
That's quite an image.
It is. But here's the crazy part. There is absolutely no leash in the sky. There's no force control. Once that bird leaves your glove, there is no guarantee that it will ever return. You literally cannot make it come back.
Yeah, you really can't.
And yet, after its flight,
Yeah.
it does. It circles back, drops from the sky, and lands right exactly where it started.
It's an incredibly powerful image to start with, honestly, because it completely defies our basic human instinct.
What do you mean?
Well, think about it. When we care about something, or, when we are responsible for something, our default setting is usually to hold on tighter.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Right. We want to control all the variables so we don't lose the thing we value. We build cages, essentially.
Which is exactly why this image is the whole foundation of the source document we're doing a deep dive into today.
Yeah, the piece titled, What a DSL Can Learn from a Falconer.
Exactly. And just for anyone who might not be familiar with the acronym, a DSL is a designated safeguarding lead in a school.
Right, the professionals directly responsible for child protection.
Yeah. They are the ones tasked with keeping students safe, particularly in these really high-stakes environments like boarding schools, where the school is effectively acting as the parent for, like, a massive portion of the year.
And that is a massive, highly regulated responsibility. It is a job entirely defined by risk assessment, legal compliance, and, well, preparing for worst-case scenarios.
It really is. But our mission today isn't just about, like, school administration or educational policy.
No, not at all.
Even if you don't run a school or even if you don't work with kids at all, this deep dive is basically a masterclass in human psychology.
Yeah, it applies to almost everyone.
We're exploring the hidden architecture of vulnerability, really. We're looking at why human beings, especially vulnerable ones in difficult, messy situations, actually choose to open up.
Right, because this document completely dismantles that modern assumption we all have.
The assumption that putting strong structures and clear rules in place automatically equals engagement and trust, right?
Exactly. We have this tendency in corporate and institutional life to think that if we build the perfect system, people will naturally just use it.
Yeah, if you build it, they will come.
Right. But the source material draws this fascinating parallel between the ancient, entirely voluntary dynamic of falconry and modern safeguarding.
Okay, unpack that a bit.
Well, the bird doesn't come back because it has to. It comes back because it chooses to. And understanding that leap from the physical freedom of the bird to the psychological reality of a student is where we start unlocking how trust actually works.
Okay, let's follow that thread then. We have a creature with total freedom and absolutely no physical restrictions.
Yeah.
Why does it make the choice to return to the falconer instead of just flying off into the woods?
What's fascinating here is that it boils down to a fundamental psychological truth. Trust is built through consistency, not authority.
Consistency, not authority.
Yeah. The falcon returns because the falconer is completely predictable. The relationship is consistent. The bird knows exactly what to expect, like safety and food, when it lands on that glove.
I see.
So when we translate that to a DSL, or really any adult in a position of care, it exposes a major flaw in how we usually handle leadership. Positional authority does not create trust.
Right. You can't just point to your job title.
Exactly. You cannot just point to your badge or your office door and expect a student to feel safe disclosing a trauma to you just because you're the boss.
Okay, let's unpack this with an analogy.
Yeah.
Because I think we've all experienced this in, like, the adult world. Compare controlling school environments to a terrible customer service experience.
Oh, I like where this is going.
Right. If you call a helpline and you're immediately met with an authoritative tone or you're bombarded with aggressive questions, your instinct is to just hang up.
Yep. Or ask for a manager.
Exactly. You walk away. Which totally explains why the traditional school response to a crisis often backfires. When an adult senses danger, Their instinct is to take control.
Yes, to lock things down.
But let's think about what taking control actually feels like from the other side. It's like walking across a frozen lake.
Ooh, that's a good visual.
You know the ice is thin, you're terrified, and you're moving incredibly carefully. Now, if someone standing on the shore starts yelling at you to hurry up, or like barking orders at you through a megaphone.
Your instinct isn't to run faster toward them.
Exactly. You freeze, you lower your center of gravity to protect yourself, you just shut down entirely.
That is a perfect way to visualize the nervous system's response to an authoritative tone. Because when an adult tries to over-control a student, maybe by bombarding them with rapid-fire questions, using a really rigid tone, or removing their autonomy.
The student just panics.
Worse. The student's brain perceives that adult as an additional threat. Communication doesn't just stall, it actively breaks down. The source explicitly points out that heavy-handed control increases resistance.
And if we dig a layer deeper into that, positional authority relies entirely on the fear of consequence.
Right. Usually, yes.
A teacher has leverage because they can give you a detention or a bad grade or call your parents.
Right, the standard punishments.
But if a student is holding on to a really dark, difficult, secret-like abuse, neglect, or self-harm, that secret is already so much worse than anything the school can threaten them with. The authority just loses all its leverage.
That is a really profound insight. The traditional tools of compliance are completely useless when faced with profound trauma.
So detention means nothing to them.
Nothing. Students do not disclose because they are controlled. They disclose because they feel emotionally safe. If you try to aggressively grab the falcon out of the sky, you just lose it entirely.
That makes total sense.
Safeguarding trust is created through repeated, consistent behavior. It's about following through on what you say and being an emotionally reliable presence long before the crisis ever happens.
Wow. Okay, so if controlling a student actually pushes them away and authority has no leverage over trauma, then we have to accept what I imagine is a pretty terrifying reality for educators.
What's that?
Engagement is entirely up to the student. Like, they hold all the cards.
They absolutely do. It is the architecture of choice. Just like the bird can stay in the sky or fly to a different tree or return to the glove, the student always has a choice.
You don't have to talk.
Exactly. They can choose to speak or they can choose to stay silent. They can engage with the support system or they can withdraw completely. The relationship at the core of a disclosure is completely voluntary.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second, though.
Go for it.
Because we can't ignore the modern reality of education. Schools spend massive amounts of time and money putting formal safeguarding systems in place.
Yes, they do.
We're talking anonymous reporting software, designated safe rooms, specialized staff training, those colorful lanyards that say safe space.
Yeah, the whole infrastructure.
Right. So are we saying those environments and formal systems don't actually matter? Like, are millions of dollars in infrastructure just totally useless if a kid doesn't happen to vibe with a teacher?
That is the exact tension the source addresses, actually, and it requires a major reframing of what a system really is.
Okay, how so?
Well, the formal structures are necessary, yes, but the text argues that the relationship is the safeguarding system.
The relationship itself.
Yeah, think about it. The physical environment of the field doesn't bring the falcon back. The leather glove just sitting on a table doesn't bring it back. The Falconer does.
Oh, wow.
So for a DSL, those anonymous tip lines and state-of-the-art reporting protocols, they are completely useless if the students don't actually trust the adults who are monitoring them.
Ah, I see. It shifts the cognitive burden.
Exactly.
Because if I'm a student in crisis, my brain is already completely overloaded. If the school relies solely on a formal system, like a sterile online reporting form, I have to simultaneously process my trauma and try to evaluate if the adult reading that form is going to handle it safely.
Yes, that's way too much to ask of a child in crisis.
But if you've already proven your reliability in mundane moments, like, I don't know, remembering my weekend or reacting calmly when I drop a textbook, you've taken that evaluation burden off my plate.
Precisely. You've proven the glove is a safe place to land when the stakes were low.
Which means the heavy lifting of safeguarding actually happens in the ordinary, everyday moments.
It absolutely does. Trust cannot be rushed, and it definitely cannot be forced. The source is very clear that the relationship enabling a critical, life-saving disclosure is usually built long before the disclosure ever happens.
It takes time.
It requires immense patience. If the only time a DSL interacts with a student is when something is wrong, that student is going to associate that adult with panic, interrogation, and institutional machinery.
Right. They won't associate them with safety.
No, not at all.
So we're talking about like a kid lingering by a teacher's desk after the bell rings just to chat about a video game.
Yep.
That isn't just a waste of 5 minutes. That is the foundational work of a safeguarding system.
Precisely. And if we accept that this entire system is completely reliant on voluntary relationships built over time through those micro-interactions, it fundamentally changes how a school should measure its own success.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because it flips the metric completely.
Yeah, really does.
Because in falconry, success is not locking the bird in a cage so it can never leave. Success isn't keeping the bird at all. Success is the bird choosing to return to you after flying free.
Yes. For a DSL, safeguarding success isn't about having 0 incident reports or perfectly controlling the student body so that nothing bad ever happens.
Right, that's an illusion anyway.
Exactly. True success is a student actively seeking help. It's a student choosing to speak, trusting the system enough to hand over their ultimate vulnerability. The return is the outcome.
I really love the elegance of that philosophy, but I want to slow down here for a minute.
Sure.
Because we have to acknowledge a massive difference in stakes. This is a beautiful philosophy, but a falconer is practicing a hobby.
Right.
If they mess up or if the bird just decides to fly away and never come back, it's sad, but it's just a lost bird. A DSL is dealing with child safety. We were talking about abuse, severe neglect, self-harm.
Yes, the stakes are life and death.
So what happens when a student doesn't choose to return, but they are in imminent danger? You can't just let them fly away, right? You can't just say, well, I guess I didn't build enough rapport.
That is an excellent question. And it's the heaviest, most critical distinction in this entire deep dive. The source material doesn't shy away from this at all.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it explicitly dedicates a section to it called the honest bit, where the falconer analogy breaks down.
That is a relief, honestly, because I imagine educators listening to this might be feeling an immense amount of pressure right now. The idea of relying purely on a student's voluntary choice when their life is on the line is, well, it's terrifying.
It is terrifying, which is why, if we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to look at the legal and ethical reality of education. The source outlines what DSLs must not take from the falconry metaphor.
Okay, what's the difference?
Falconry is a purely voluntary relationship with absolutely no obligation to intervene, but safeguarding comes with a strict duty of care.
Duty of care.
Yes. A DSL has a legal and moral responsibility to protect. Intervention is not optional when it's required.
So the choices aren't actually equal. A student might choose to withdraw, but the adult does not have the option to let them.
Exactly. You cannot rely on relationship alone when intervention is non-negotiable. The formal systems matter intensely here.
Right.
Some situations require a DSL to step in, involve external agencies, or break confidentiality, regardless of whether the student has voluntarily opened up. If there is imminent harm, you don't wait for the bird to land. You intervene to protect.
Man, that sounds like an almost impossible tightrope to walk.
It's incredibly difficult.
Because the outcome for a falconer is just the return of the bird, which requires total patience. But the outcome for a DSL is the actual safety and well-being of a child, which sometimes requires immediate, forceful action.
Yes.
So they have to be relationship-led to foster the trust, but they have to be system-led to fulfill their legal duty of care.
It is a profound leadership challenge. How do you bridge that gap between mandatory intervention and the absolute need to foster completely voluntary trust?
Right, because you can't just mandate empathy.
No, you can't. It requires building an entire culture that supports this duality.
Which brings us to the system level. Because how do you actually scale this?
Scaling is the hard part.
Yeah, it's one thing for one incredibly empathetic, patient teacher to act like a good falconer in their specific classroom. It's a completely different challenge to get an entire boarding school staff, from the principal down to the maintenance team, to operate this way.
Well, the document poses what I think is the ultimate diagnostic question for any leader reading this.
What is it?
It asks, would your students choose to come to you or only speak when they feel they have no other option?
Oof, that is a gut punch of a question.
It really is.
Because if a student only comes to you when they're backed into a corner and the secret is already spilling out, you aren't really safeguarding them. You're just managing the fallout.
Exactly. And to move from managing fallout to actively building trust, The source details how to apply this philosophy to pastoral systems.
Okay.
And just to clarify, when they say pastoral systems, they are talking about the actual networks of emotional and social support within a school, like the non-academic side of student life.
Right, the well-being side.
Yeah, and they break this down across 3 layers: foundations, developmental pathways, and leadership.
Okay, let's look at that first layer, foundations. Based on everything we've discussed about the nervous system and predictability, this has to be about creating belonging and identity.
Spot on.
Right. Before a student ever needs to disclose something terrible, they need to feel fundamentally connected to the school community. They need to feel seen as an individual, not just a metric on a spreadsheet.
Absolutely.
If the foundational relationships aren't strong, if the student feels alienated or invisible day to day, the leap required to make a crisis disclosure is just way too wide.
It's exactly like trying to call in a falcon when you've never even introduced it to the glove. It simply won't work.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So once that foundation of belonging is there, you move to the second layer, developmental pathways. This is about actively building social and relational capacity, and it works in 2 directions.
The directions.
Yes. First, the staff need deep, continuous training on relational safeguarding. They need to understand the psychology we just discussed, not just how to fill out a compliance form.
And the second direction. Because we keep saying students need to trust the adults, but trust is a skill.
Exactly.
How does a school actually teach a teenager how to trust an adult?
By giving them the mechanism to practice. You have to provide low-stakes environments for them to make choices and navigate adult structures way before a crisis hits.
Oh, like giving them real agency.
Exactly. Letting them lead a club, trusting them to mediate peer disputes, or even involving them in decisions about the school environment.
That builds trust.
Yeah, because when adults step back and allow students to exercise autonomy in these low-stakes areas, it proves to the student that the adults respect their choices. They're practicing the mechanics of trust.
Ah. So when the high-stakes crisis does happen, they already have muscle memory for how to engage with the adults in the building. That makes total sense.
It does. And that brings us to the final layer, leadership.
The culture piece.
Right. This is where the entire philosophy either cements or crumbles. Leadership has to embed a culture of trust, emotional safety, and consistency across all staff.
Okay.
Remember the predictability we talked about earlier. That has to be a systemic trait, not just an individual one.
Right, because if I'm a student and I trust my homeroom teacher, but the school administration as a whole operates with heavy-handed punitive control.
Right, barking orders and relying on fear.
Yeah, like obsessing over minor uniform infractions and stuff. I'm going to remain totally guarded. I might trust the one teacher, but I don't trust the environment.
Exactly.
The lake still feels like thin ice.
Yes. The leaders must ensure that the empathetic teacher isn't an anomaly, but the standard. The structures, the policies, and the daily operations must all reflect that fundamental respect for the student's autonomy.
So what does this all mean when we pull it together? When we zoom out and look at all these pieces, the psychology of authority, the necessity of those micro-interactions, the legal duty of care, and the systemic culture, the core message is incredibly cohesive.
It really is.
The Falcon is connected, not controlled. It returns because it recognizes the environment, it trusts the safety of the glove, and it feels secure in its choice.
And effective safeguarding demands that exact same mindset. It requires a massive shift away from demanding compliance and a move toward inviting connection.
Right.
It is consistent, patient, relationship-driven practice.
You are creating the conditions for trust day in and day out so that when the stakes are the absolute highest, the student makes the active, voluntary choice to return.
Yeah. And, the source leaves the reader with a really poignant question to carry forward, and it's one I think every educator should have pinned to their desk.
Let's hear it.
It asks, am I building safeguarding through control or through the kind of trust that means a student would choose to come back to me?
It's brilliant. And as we wrap up our deep dive today, I want to offer a final provocative thought specifically for you, the listener.
Yeah.
Because while this document was written specifically for school leaders managing child protection, the underlying psychology here bleeds into almost every single human interaction.
It really does.
Think about the systems in your own life. Think about your workplace, your family dynamics, your friendships, or even your romantic relationships. Look at the people around you.
It's a tough mirror to look into.
It is. Are they engaging with you because the structures and obligations of those relationships force them to? Are they sticking around because they are legally bound by a contract, or because they need the paycheck, or because it's just, socially expected?
Mm-hmm.
Or have you done the quiet, patient work? Have you cultivated the kind of emotionally safe, consistent, predictable environment where if all the rules were stripped away and they were given total freedom, they would actively choose to return to you?
That's a real test.
It is. It's easy to build a cage. It's a lot harder to be the open glove. Next time you feel the urge to tighten your grip on a situation, remember that bird in the open sky. Control might feel like safety to you, but only choice proves trust.